Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to all of you who have joined us for this second workshop in the series for women in STEM from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. This is a series of workshops that has been devised by the Australian Science Media Centre in collaboration with STEM Sisters and the Victorian Lead Scientists Office. So it's a
really important thing to remember as experts, that when we're talking to the media or to the general public about our work, we're essentially telling a story, and it's all about storytelling and narrative. In general, when we do a media interview, once that interview is over, that's when we, as the expert, that's really when we lose control. So it's quite hard to avoid this altogether, but there are some techniques you can use to help avoid it happening in the first place. And I think, one great tip is, well, if you don't want to be misunderstood, then make yourself very easily understood and be very clear about what you're saying and what you're not saying. So identify that those ways in which something could be misquoted or taken out of context. If you identify that ahead of time, then you can clear up that during the interview and say, I am not saying this, but what I am saying is, and just make that nice and clear.
The perspective of the work that you already do, you have a lot of skills that are readily transferable. I know how much time and effort goes into, for example, to writing grant applications and the care that people take to do that. So all of those skills that you already have are very much transferable to the challenge of getting ready for a media speaking spot. So you're thinking about, what's the abstract? What is the key message you need to get across in that particular format? And who is the audience? So very similar to what you already would be doing in terms of publication and grant preparation. So I would encourage everyone to kind of not think that media preparation is somehow mystical. A lot of those same, principles, you need to be prepared. You need to have had to think about what those questions would be in the same way you would do that if you were planning to have a conversation with a collaborator. You don't want to turn up with sort of an empty head. You want to have thought through what are some of the questions that may come up and how do I prosecute my argument and get my message across. I think so everything that Jo said around preparation, practice, and also positioning are really pertinent. So, and when I talk about positioning, it's really about thinking from the standpoint that I'm coming from, what is the angle that this particular media agency is going to be wanting to get across. And sometimes you might actually discover that the biggest angle is that they're just looking for someone from a diverse background, or they're actually not interested in that at all, and it's more about the message that you're delivering. So that conversation that you have with whoever it is in media that you're working with is really kind of central in terms of understanding from their perspective, what is it that they're wanting to get out of that engagement? And it allows you to make a really rational choice about if you want to be positioned in that way. Case in point, I've recently been asked to be involved or chair a panel where it was very clear to me that the main intent for me being on the panel was really about providing some balance. So I sort of had to push back and say, look, I will do this panel, but I actually want to be a speaker on the panel as opposed to sort of there doing a little bit of shadow puppetry to make it look like you've balanced the ledger. So you need to be very forthright in saying, what is it that I'm bringing to this forum, and choose whether or not your diversity, your newness is even relevant. Like, does it even really matter? And I say that because for anybody who's a woman of color or from a diverse background, you have an additional burden of representation, not only for yourself, your family, but for the biggest sphere of everyone who will be looking at you thinking, and one of the nice things is when you do it, I suddenly get emails from random Zimbabweans going, oh, well done. Oh, this is so good to see you. Like, I don't even know these people. But there is that burden of representation, which is good when things are going well. But if you come out with a message that's maybe not what people are expecting, the flip side of that is that, oh, you've disappointed the whole community. So I would urge everybody to think really deeply and just connect with yourself and say, look, I represent myself first and foremost. I don't represent the Zimbabwean community. I don't represent all women. I don't represent all infectious diseases physicians around the world. I represent me. And when you can kind of sit with that and really hold on to that and feel it strongly, it kind of helps to take away all of that additional pressure of, oh my goodness, now I've got to be all these 70 different things because this is why I was asked to attend, is I'm covering off on all these bases. All you need to cover off on is you and your authentic version of you, the skill set that you're bringing. And if it happens to be relevant that you happen to be a woman of color, of course you can discuss that, but don't feel like you're sort of forced to have it be on the table all the time. You don't have to give yourself that additional burden of representation, because it's not something that you walk away from anyway. It's there. And then you kind of have to be really rational about, you know, how is it relevant to this moment, and or is it not?
Terrific. We have a question here from Shweta. She's asked, hi Kutsai, I've been following you and seen your interviews. What is the top tip to project the confidence while speaking, and particularly for people whose English is not their first language?
Yeah, again, this is really one around practice. Like I can tell a lot of my registrars who are preparing for job interviews, there are very few questions that you'll ever get asked that are genuinely unique or so random that you can't think of what on earth would I say to that. So when you're thinking about your particular specialty or the area that you work in, I would encourage you to get in the habit of finding yourself a professional heckler. And by that, I mean, find a friend or somebody in your area who understands your area, who you can have in-depth conversations with, and have some of these questions asked of you and just see what comes out.